donate wherever I can. Um, that's it. That's.
Do you believe your experiences affected the way you raised your two children?
I think so. My daughter said that I really didn't have too much patience for her, she says. But it did affect them to be Jewish, to be religious, to, what can I say? It was, they feel that our experience has given some, uh, to understand their Jewish faith, the Jewish, in what the Jews go through.
Do you think you were less strict with them or more strict with them?
I think I was more strict with my daughter than with my son. I was older already, and when my son was 13 years old, his father died, and we stayed with him. We stayed both of us together. Somehow, he was 13 years old. We planned a wedding, 25th wedding anniversary, and his bar mitzvah together. And on my anniversary, I was sitting shiva, and on his bar mitzvah, we made a bar mitzvah in shul, and the guests who came, instead of sitting and enjoying, they were crying all the time.
You said you shared with your grandchildren a lot of your experiences. Did you also share those with your children when they were growing up, what you went through?
You know, I think when they were little, they couldn't understand much, but it did help. It helped my son. He was always proud of his parents. And right now my daughter too. But when she was young, I don't think she was proud. She was always thinking, oh, my parents are foreigners. Well, we try to give her everything what American parents do. So that's it.
Do you think often of your Holocaust experiences?
Yeah, when I can't sleep at night, that comes back to me. That, you know, you can't erase that ever. But then I feel thankful that the way I live in a nice place, I, I don't need any help from my children. I hope I will never hit. My mother used to say, I should be rich, my children should be rich, and I should be richer than them, because parents give their children, but children have a short hand. Somehow they need more. They always need more. So it's hard for parents to need children to help them.
Tape for future generations.
Yes.
To watch for
Yes.
even your grandchildren, great-grandchildren, etc.
Yeah.
What would you like to say to all those future generations out there?
I always had in my mind what to tell the future. I tell them that there is a God, and God takes care of us. Even we think sometimes we're very upset, it's not the right thing, but God really helps us. And I feel, I hope it's never going to happen anything like that to them. I always wanted for my children to be better than for me, whatever I had. That's what I always feel. When my children need something, I'm around here. It was always for them here.
Would you like to give any advice to those future generations about to conduct their lives?
I don't think I'm smart enough to tell them, but I tell them never despair. There is always help someplace. Because if God helped me, so I'm sure that would help our children, future generation. Most important, they should study and always story about the Jewish history. Because we Jews had always hard times, but somehow we went through it. Somehow we had, when it's really very bad, help is close. And I always tell them after rain comes sunshine.
Before we close, is there anybody you would like to memorialize on this tape or anything further you'd like to say before closing?
My family was always good to me. My relatives were always, and we are a very close family right here. We have once a month cousins reunion. I'm the oldest between the whole reunion, and we always celebrate our holidays. We always celebrate together. First, I used to invite all of them. Now I'm invited from them. Now it's their time. So I'm very pleased with my family.
Well, we wish you many more healthy years to be pleased with your
Thank
family,
you.
a good
Thank you.
life, and thank you very much.
Thank you. I didn't. I was thinking, I have so much to say, and right now I'm so overwhelmed. I have nothing to say.
Thank you.
And I'm thankful to the Jewish the Jews in America are very wonderful people. They always are here to help, always here to give. And so, and I'm trying to.
Well, thank you. Mina, you have the majority of your beautiful family here. Would you introduce each one?
Yeah. That's my daughter, it's Paula Baldwin. That's my son, Johnny Bernberg. That's his wife, Sue Bernberg. Here is Rachel Baldwin. She is my daughter's. And Paula Bernberg and Joelle Bernberg. That's my smallest.
How about that lovely gentleman next to you on the other side?
That's my husband. He came later.
His name.
After all.
What is his name?
So his name.
George Clark.
Are there a few grandchildren that can be with us today?
Yes. There is Sarah Baldwin and there is Sean Berger.
Doctor.
George, let me ask you first. I know that you are also a survivor. When you met Mina, what was it that sparked you to want to marry her?
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
I'm sorry, in my age, you can forgive me, I'm not really understand.
Oh, what is it that when you saw Mina that you were attracted to her?
I didn't know.
How did you meet me?
Oh! That's a great question. And very funny answer also. Is in a swimming pool.
Did you know she was a survivor of the Holocaust?
I'm not a Holocaust survivor, but I was in a labor camp, forced labor camp in the Russian around 3 or 3.5 years. Once.
Have you shared?
Then I also been in Russian war prison. When they liberated me, they took me back again.
Have you shared these experiences with Mina?
We do.
You do.
Besides this, My two sisters was in Auschwitz. My par- I lost my parents. I lost my parents in Auschwitz. They were taken away too. My two sisters came back. Thank God. One of course over here. I mean at home in Hungary. She died. My brother also as a labor, forced labor camp, was put also to Russian, and he disappeared in Russian. I think sometimes 1943.
Well, we encourage you one day to give your testimony too. We hope that you will give your testimony to this
About-
one
To
day.
also
About-
film,
That someday you'll
to
you'll
film
also
another
discuss.
day, to come back and film for you too.
Whatever is you want.
Okay.
I'm retired and usually I have time to do that. Anytime you want me.
Let me
I get
start.
a long story about it.
Zipporah, let me start with you. You are the oldest. What is your first recollection of knowing your mother's experiences during the war?
Well, when I was a child, I recall my parents talking at the table. Our first time that the first time that I really remember was when I was a very small child. We were living we had a little market when we came here to the United States, and we lived upstairs from the market in a one-bedroom apartment, and I shared a dining room with my brother. My brother had the crib on one side, I had the single bed on the other, and the dining room table in between. And I remember a lot of conversations and discussions, and my father used to speak about it all the time with my mother and with guests, and they used to tell the stories over and over so that others would know about what happened, so that we should never forget. And I used to hear these stories every night, and it was a part of my life.
Did you have other friends who had also parents who were survivors?
Not as a small child, but as I grew older, I went to Fairfax High School, and also when I went to Talmud Torah and after school Jewish studies, I started having Jewish friends. And of course, we were the second generation. I was born in '49, not so long after the war. And the people of my generation especially, many of them were children of survivors, second generation.
How do you think it might have affected your life as a child and growing up?
Well, I feel that we had a struggle. It was difficult. My parents came here with just the clothes on their back. They came out of the war. When my mother said I was homeless once, I couldn't believe it. And to think that that could have happened to my own parents, that they could have suffered so, that they would have had to walk from Italy through the Alps, through all of Europe, to struggle to survive, to think that my mother could have been blind, and to have picked up from nothing, from ashes, and to make a future for all of us, and to create this warm, loving family, and to create a legacy for us, is just, it amazes me. It amazes me as I think of it. And it gives me a lot of pride and a lot of courage to do what I have to do in my life.
Thank you. Johnny,
Yes.
you're a few years younger than your sister.
Yes.
Do you remember these stories as well?
Yes, I remember the stories since as long as I can remember, since the day I was born. And a couple of things come to mind is that I had a little different experience, although I also was born near the store up on a court right near downtown. I went to Jewish day schools in the city, to Yavne and to Rambam later in high school. And a couple of things that occurred to me later in life was that when I grew up, all my friends were from immigrants. There were survivor kids. And it was the rare occasion that there was a couple of families that had American-born parents. And it was years later when one of the kids' school had Grandparents' Day. And I realized, how come we never had Grandparents' Day when I was a kid? And I come to realize because they wouldn't have dared do Grandparents' Day when none of us had any grandparents. All our memory and all our history that we could see started in this country. And it only dawned on me till I was older. I just understood that our history starts in 1959, 1957 when I was born, and that's it.
Is there any feeling about being cheated?
Yes, definitely. The thing that strikes me the most till this day is that I don't have a picture of my grandparents. Is that not enough that I didn't get to meet them or talk to them or know them, but I always wanted a picture, at least to know what they looked like, and I don't have that. And the only thing that my mom got out of Europe was a thimble, and I have that thimble in my house, and that's the only thing that we have from that time.
My grandparents, the pictures there.
We're going to show a few pictures of the family when we finish here. Is there anything you'd like to share with your mother at this moment, as far as your feelings from what she had gone through?
Yes, that I love you very much, and that it's only as I get older that I can fully understand. I always knew the sacrifices that you made, not the least leaving Ecuador so that we could grow up in this wonderful country. And it only year after year goes by as I have my own kids and I see the sacrifices that have to be made sometimes that are difficult, that I really appreciate the depth of what you did for us, for my sister and me and our generations and everybody that comes beyond us, and I just appreciate it.
Sue? An emotional moment. Anything you'd like to share with your mother-in-law?
Yeah. I want you to know that knowing your story has given us all a lot of strength and a lot of drive to do the very best that we can do in this world. And you've always been an inspiration for me of courage. And I remember when I first met you that I would describe you as living life every day. Everything made you happy, appreciated everything, and I was always very struck with how much love and appreciation that you have and still have. But I remember that as one of my earliest memories of meeting you. Thank you. Thank you for wonderful children and for putting in such spirit.
Thank you. Rachel, Paula, Joelle, would one of you like to share anything?
Well, I'd like to say something. Having my grandmother have gone through such a big thing and have suffered so much. When I was younger, I never knew. I mean, my grandmother was just my grandmother, but when I started to hear what happened to her before I knew her, before I was born, and of all the struggling she had to go through, I mean, it made me thankful for everything that I have and everything that she gave to us. And I would look at other kids after hearing these stories, and I would look at other kids and how they'd yell in the store, why won't my mother buy me this candy bar? And I realized that my grandmother, I mean, how thankful I was for everything after I knew what kind of struggle that a person would have to go through, and her being open and telling me what happened to her has been a big part of my life, because she appreciates everything that's given to her, and she helps me to appreciate everything in my life that's so wonderful because of her.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, you want to talk? Well, as far, like, to me, I was born knowing almost, like, I can't remember a day in my whole life when I didn't know about Grandma and what she went through, and about her sisters and my great-grandparents, and I always, my mom's father died also when she was younger, so I never met that grandfather, and I have Papa George, but my father's father also passed away before I was born, so Um, I understand a little, not nearly as much as anyone that didn't experience it could, but um, it's definitely affected my life in a huge way because it's so much a part of me and my grandma and my family, and being able to appreciate life in America. Like some people, they don't know, they don't understand that in other countries it's not as good, and that there was a time when everything wasn't, when there wasn't freedom. It doesn't mean anything to them. And I've seen all the pictures and all the horror and the gore, and every time it's personal to me. It's not, it's as if I was there in a sense, because my grandma has been open with us, and it's no secret. I know her story. I did interview her a few years ago for a school project, and I learned some more stories, just more and more and more every time, and I did stuff I didn't know, but it's always been a part of my life, always, every day. When someone mentions World War II, it's the Holocaust, it's the Shoah, and it's personal to me. I can understand, and it helps to appreciate having grandparents, because my dad never had grandparents, and so, yeah, and I love my grandma more than anything.
Thank you.
I don't have much to say, but I know that also, like Paula, ever since, like from the time I was born, I've been hearing about the Holocaust, not only from my grandmother, but from my mom at home. For instance, when I would fight with my siblings, my mom would say, well, you know, we shouldn't, well, my grandmother and my mom, that we shouldn't fight with our siblings because my grandmother lost hers, and, you know, we should appreciate what we have. And also, like, eating at Friday night dinner together. Every Friday we have Shabbat dinner. And just, you know, to be good to each other, and family's the only thing you have. And just a lot of good morals, and my grandmother has a tremendous amount of inner strength and understanding for adolescence, and she grew up alone, and she went through all of this basically alone. And I look at her as a real person, not only as my grandmother, somebody that, you know, is my family member and somebody that could, you know, give me compassion, but I look at her as a hero in a sense. Like, I look at her as just an amazing individual. And so that's it. Just I really appreciate you, Grandma, and I love you. And I'm sorry for all the things that you went through, but I love you.
Oh, we thank you for all showing up, being here today. We know it means a lot to your grandma. And Minna, you have a lovely family, and we hope that you'll all share these stories and this history with your future families. Important to keep it on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is my grandfather, Nussen Schulman, and my grandmother, Golda Schulman. And they lived in Berhomet, and this is pictures taken 1921 in Berhomet, Romania. This is my husband, Joel Bernberg. My name is Mina Bernberg Todres, and that's my daughter, Nancy Baldwin, and that's my son, Johnny Bernberg. The picture was taken in 1959 in Los Angeles, California. This is my second husband, Herman Todres, and Mina Bernberg Todres, and that was taken in 1984 in Los Angeles, California. This is
Was this 1988? You said 10 years ago.
this is my that's Zipporah. It's Zipporah Baldwin, and this is Sean Berger, my grandson. That's Sue Bernberg, and her daughter Joelle, Johnny Bernberg, and his daughter Paula. Then here is my granddaughter Sarah Baldwin, and Rachel Baldwin, and the last Mina Todres. And the picture was taken in 1988 in Los Angeles, California.